Alright, hey guys. So, this video is mostly an informational video about a project that I've been working on recently, where I primarily just, well, to summarize it, I worked on this over the course of probably about 2 days, probably about 10 hours total. So, but I will say this is a project that I have been working on and off, and have done actually several times because I never actually officially backed this project up, but I digress. It's mainly a project where it allows you to, when you run this program, it allows you to ping Minecraft servers and pull information about these Minecraft servers, such as the number of people online, their names if querying is enabled on the server side, and other relevant data, but primarily those two things. And it also allows you to log this data now with a feature that I have actually added as of today. But this tool is mostly for people who are running servers and whatnot and want to know a little bit more about their servers and the players that are actually active on these servers. Um, that is if you choose to enable logging. And for the general use, of this program, you can actually just, get information about, again, if querying is on, who is online, how often they're on, and just see how many players are online. So again, this is more designed for people who are hosting Minecraft servers to kind of just get an idea of like, their peak hours and their low hours. If, again, if logging isn't, enabled. And if querying is on, you can see who's online, which I know that's going to be if that is enabled on the server side for larger servers such as Hypixel and whatnot, you don't really care about all the player names and who's online necessarily, but you might care about, the number of peak people who are online and what time of day, so you might have an idea of, when to run maintenance or whatever. And the same applies to people who are running smaller Minecraft servers. You might want to know when your peak operating hours are, when people get on most of the time, because maybe you want to save some power and turn the server off for those, unpopular times and turn on the servers for those more popular times. Or just, maybe allocate less PC resources for those things based on the data you've collected. Or for myself, I just want to know when my friends are online without having to, open Minecraft, or if it's a larger mod pack, having to open that mod pack and go through the whole shebang. I just want to know if somebody's online. So that's what this is for. I will say it was based off of code written by Dinnerbone himself, and I believe that project has since been upkept by somebody else. But as you can see here, but yeah, this video is more of a informational video on how to use it, my program, which is built upon some of Dinnerbone's work, and less about any gaming or anything like that. So if you're interested in it, keep watching the video, and yeah, I hope you enjoy. My brothers and sisters. Okay. So I'm going to go over really quickly a little library that I've been working on called mcstatus-ui, which is actually based on a project made by Dinnerbone, which actually got moved over to this library over here. So with that being said, what this project does is that, and again, this is the foundation of my project, is that what it does is that it pings a Minecraft server and allows me to figure out how many players online and how long that took for it to ping the server, and the names of the players on there, which is called querying, and that's going to be important going down the line to know. But the only way to get the actual names of the players on the server is if that is enabled in the server.properties, which is something that is actually on the Minecraft server side. So if you are trying to ping, your friend's Minecraft server or something, tell them to crack open their server.properties file and enable querying, because otherwise you cannot get the names of the players that are actually on the server. Now that's not, a detrimental thing, but if you want to know, if your brother or your cousin Billy Bob is online without, hopping on Minecraft and figuring it out, then yeah, that's something that you're going to have to enable. It does not, it shouldn't mess with anything important with the server, and it just tells the player names. But by default, like I said, this is disabled by default, which is part of the design decisions that I made for my software. So, but it primarily uses this section of this library. And just to note, I only made this for Java Edition, not Bedrock, because more than likely you're going to be using this program to ping a Java server anyways. And if you really wanted to ping a Bedrock server and get information out of it, you could retrofit my program to do that, but I did not pursue it. I might in the future, but for now it's designed for the Java Edition. Now with that being said, let's continue. So just a little bit of background. I've made this project over the several years, several times, and I've just lost the files to it. And so I just decided, probably within the last week or so, dadgummit, I want to do it again, and I just need to store it somewhere, so here's a project. But let me, on the user side, go through it really quickly, which explains the features here. And just a quick keynote, yes, I did use ChatGPT, and before you shoot me down, I know what you're going to say. You shouldn't do that, you didn't actually make the program, whatever. What I did is that there's a bunch of examples here for development, for UI testing, and all of these, there's a little bit of tweaks made here and there, and tracking player activity. There's whole development subsections, and all these little tests are pretty much little examples that ChatGPT generated for me. And what I did is I cobbled together all of those examples in my knowledge and reading the documentation and API in order to get what I have here. So I used it actually as an assistive tool and not as a crutch to rely upon. So without being said and without further ado, I'm going to skip the features section a little bit and come back to it, and I'll actually show you what it would look like if you downloaded it for the first time. But before I dive into that, and don't get overwhelmed, let me explain to you what Python libraries you'll need to actually install this thing. So you'll need, you can ignore these, sorry. All you need here are tkinter, which you should be able to install from, should just be able to do that little command here, pip install tkinter. You might have to do, depending on your Python version, pip 3 or 3.10, it really depends, but you have to do that. And then I'm not sure if threading is a library. I believe that's part of your Python installation. I know time is. This is a Python program that's in here, don't worry about it. And then mcstatus, you will have to do a pip install. And that, as I said from before, this is the base library used for this thing, so you'll actually need to install it in order for this to work. But without further ado, let's say that you went ahead and git cloned this project. You should just be left with these files here. So with that being said, if you actually want to run the Python program, so you can either do your standard Python 3 and run mcstatus-ui, or if you're running Windows, you can just run this .bat here, or if you're running Linux or whatever, you can run .bash. Let's just run the .bat for now. And again, if you're already running in a terminal, you can just do Python 3 and run mcstatus. But anyways. So here are a few example servers that I have provided here. So if I wanted to, more than likely you want to add your own server. So let's dive into that. If I wanted to add my own server IP, I'd click this little button here, and it'd give me this pop-up here. And so let's say I wanted to do hello.world.mc on the port 25565, the default Minecraft port, and I click OK. When I click OK, what that's going to do is going to add it to this little list here. Boom. Now it shows it here. So now that I've added it, I now realize that I might have mistyped something. It's supposed to be port 25565, and I typed in 25562. Oh no, I want to edit that. Or delete it, maybe. Just completely remove it. Well, I can go over here to IP list. Well, first let's close this. But I go to over here to IP list, and I see this is the server that I do not want. I'm just going to remove that, and I'm going to save it. Now, something to note is that you do not want another new line here at all. I don't want any extra text. Basically, how I cannot type anything below this, that's how you're going to want it. And I'll just save and close. I'll rerun the program, and it's gone. If I wanted to change that, I could have just changed the little text in there, closed this and reopened it, and would have fixed it. But yeah, and that's also a way that you can just rapidly add servers or delete servers too. You can just open this up and just copy and paste a list of servers, delete certain ones, or tweak the IP addresses or whatever. That's just a quick way to do it. You just have to do that, save the text file, and reopen this again. But let's say now that you've added your server, you want to actually get information on it. So what I can do here is, since I know Hypixel is live, I can go ahead and click Hypixel here, and I can start instantly getting information about Hypixel. So if I just wanted to, just know that, oh, there's, so many people online, then I can just leave it like this. I don't have to enable querying. I do not have to log the data. I can just leave it like this and just be happy as a claim with it. So, but in my case, I actually want to log this data. And so what I want to do is I want to click this little checkbox, and you can ignore this in the background. I'll actually crop it down, or sorry, minimize it anyways. But what I can do here is that this actually shows me what data is actually being logged. So what's being logged right now is the IP address here, mc.hypixel.net. Enable querying is set to false, which that's tied to this little checkbox here. Players online is this number here. This is actually the same value that you'll be getting here, or rather, it should be. um, and then, since querying is off, you'll just have a little star here. Time since epoch, that's just a little fancy word for saying, since computer time started, and then human readable time, which just takes this and translates it into something that you and I can understand, which is, April 30th, 2024 at 1729. So if I enabled querying, which I'll do really quickly, you'll see this turn to true. But since querying is, as I said, off by default for most servers, it'll attempt to pull the names, it'll show that it failed, it'll attempt to start logging data, and then you'll see that in a little field that says true. Here's the error, it'll attempt to start logging data, and I want you to notice that it says true for enable query. Show here in a minute. True. So the reason that that is important, and it might show false here in a second, since I unchecked that, but the important thing is that I want you to note here is that I actually attempted to ping the server by enabling query, and that it failed. So that's the reason that I logged that data, is because it's one thing for you to completely not even, okay, it showed true at that time, good, is that's one thing for me to, note that I did not even try to ping the server, so this being false, and I have no names, and it is different knowing that I tried to ping the server and I have no names, because that means that the query failed, and that more than likely querying is disabled by server.properties on the server side. So, kind of interesting there. So that basically means I just don't get player names, but I know how many people are on. So, one server is great, but I want to know what's going on multiple servers at once. I can do that. I can run all three of these or more if I wanted to. The other servers are down right now, so that's why I'm not going to open them. I can just enable the exact same things. I can, log data actively about these servers. I can enable queries, which they're both, I know, for these servers off by default. So I'm not even going to check the box. But yeah, I can just do multiple servers at once if I wanted to, and I can close individual windows. And I want you to know that, and so you don't freak out, that when you close a window, it will show a little error here, and honestly not sure what that's tied to. I personally just ignore it since nothing important breaks. But yeah, I can do all of these. Now if I wanted to close all these at once, I can. I can just close that little box there, and I'll also close the little terminal. You're probably wondering, where is my log data going? Well, let me show you that. So the log data is actually being stored over here in this folder. And the file naming scheme is basically, it says the server IP, and if a port was included in there, it'll have the port right here, which none of these actually had a port specified in the file, in the IP address, so they're not there. And then it stores, by month, day, year, then the hour. So this is hour 17. I was looking at Hypixel, so let's go into that. And so like I was saying before, it stores the server IP here. It stores the query state here, whether or not I was trying to actually query the server, how many players were online, the player names, if there were any, time since epoch, so, computer time, and human readable time. And you'll understand why I have epoch time here in a moment. So let's go all the way over here. Let's look for where this said true. There's one true. So this is the moment that I actually enabled querying onto the server. Now the reason this is important is because, like I said, there's a distinct difference in between me enabling query and trying to get query information, so the player names, and then there's a difference between that and me not trying at all. So since I know that this was enabled and I got no names, this implies to me that there was either a problem with trying to query the server to get player names, and more than likely that means to me that more than likely querying is disabled for that server, whereas this just tells me I did not even try to query the server, and so I have no names in hand whatsoever. So that's why this column is important. And with that being said, let's just do a simple, let's just see how many players were online for this whole time. Okay, well that's interesting. For, here to here there's a drastic player drop, and here to here there's a drastic player drop. Well, that's great and all, but when did this happen? You know, so more than likely this drop didn't happen. More than likely, let's say there was not a drop of 400 to 600 or more, whatever this difference is here. Players didn't just drop instantly. More than likely what happened is that players got off the server over time. And so that's why epoch is important. Because what I can do here is that I can select data, I can edit, I can select X value, so let's just do epoch time here. And when I go back up here, oh look, this is massively different than what I originally had. And just in case you're curious for what I had from before, boom, that's the comparison. This was what I had before, this is what I had after. So there is a big difference in knowing how much of a time gap happened in between these 2 points and these 2 points, which you can see here. That's the time gap and that's the time gap, so I was correct. There was not a massive drop in players, just, instantaneously. It happened over time. Now the reason that I did not simply include human time is because if I tried to do what I just did a second ago with having time as this x-axis with human readable time, it would not work. So that's why I did epoch time. So that if I could go to this point or whatever, I could go to a specific point, it would, point out a specific, row, and then I could figure out what that actually translates into human time. So I understand, oh, at this point, this many players were on. But yeah, this is more of a tool, just, logging this data more for like somebody running a Minecraft server, so you can see like, maybe peak times players are on, and, if there was a lapse in data of like maybe the program stopped working or whatever, I can see that gap versus, a massive drop in players or whatever. So it's more of a helpful tool for that. Or if you yourself are just curious what the peak times of people being on a server is, you can do that. And these files auto-generate, once per hour. Like I said, this, final number on the end is the hour of operation. So realistically, if you had this running 24/7, over a day's time, 24 files would be generated. Now I will say, for smaller Minecraft servers, I have something enabled called smart querying. And I'll just skip down here actually really quick. Yeah, smart logging, not querying. Basically, I'll just read it to you. Data is logged once per second if there is more than one player on a server when you are pinging. If there is nobody on the server that you are pinging, in an attempt to save storage on the computer running this program, it will only store data once per minute, but still pings the server once per second in the event someone does join. So basically, if no one hops on, I only store one data point. As soon as somebody hops on, I will immediately start logging data about how many players are on. As soon as they jump off, it'll go back to that 1 minute. And that's just so that it saves storage on the system that's running this. Now, more than likely, this will not happen on bigger servers like Hypixel or whatever, but on like a personal Minecraft server, this might be invaluable to somebody who's running this tool. And again, you don't even have to store this data. You can just, casually find out how many people are online even without this disabled. This is more of a option, which I personally find interesting because realistically, like you saw there for the Hypixel server, I could see the number of people decreasing as time went on, later into the evening, which I find interesting. In most of these examples that I have here for features, it's exactly what we already covered. This little demo here, it's a bit outdated, and it just doesn't have that little box there, an extra box for data logging, but it's all still relevant. Here's how to add a server, if people were on, this is something I did not cover because there's not anybody on the Festivian server, that this will actually change colors. I think I need to update this little bit, but that's alright. It still changes colors. If there's nobody on, it should be white. If it's more than 8 or 7 people, it'll still be white. But if it's anywhere in between that sweet spot, so when your friends are actually on, more than likely it'll start changing colors. So as people start hopping, either start hopping on or hopping off in the evenings, you can figure out how many people, hopping on and hopping off. And if querying is on, it'll have that there, but this is just an example of it failing here, how to, remove a server from there, and there's a little example of stuff. Now, for whatever reason, if you did not want the smart logging on and you just wanted it to just constantly just keep pinging the server every second, just start logging that every second, you can go through the code here and enable it just logging data once per second by disabling this line of code here, enabling this one, and then just check marking that you want it to store data. But honestly, I just have it set to the smart mode by default just to save everyone's storage and not run up the storage on their machines. But yeah, then here's some references. But yeah, that's pretty much my application. It's nothing crazy, outlandish, or anything like that, but personally it helps me. Maybe one day, instead of that little, graph that I had to go back through for data analysis, I might have that displayed somewhere off to the side to see, a live output of, players online over time or something. But honestly, not necessarily required. It would be a cool little feature, but, you know. But regardless, thank you for watching, and have a good day, guys.